Last round. Just to review what we talked about last night. We talked about 3 aspects of practice yesterday. 3 aspects related to sensuality, where the Buddha said that when he was still a bodhisattva, before he became awakened, as long as he did not know and understand according to reality the gratification of sensuality, its drawbacks and its escape, he could not declare that he had attained awakening. So these are actually 3 important points that I pointed out yesterday. First, still caught in our world of sensuality, precisely because we have not understood correctly, or as they have occurred, the gratification, the drawbacks, and the escape from sensuality. The gratification of sensuality or sensual pleasures is, of course, very obvious. It's the pleasant feelings, the pleasure that you derive from experiencing the sense objects. In other suttas, the Buddha also talked not only about the sense objects, but the sense base itself. For example, as you get older, your eyes begin to fail, and you want to improve your eyesight. You put on contact lenses or you put on glasses so that you can see clearly. And now you've got LCD screens, and you have LED screens, and you have plasma screens, and you have high density screens, and you have extra high density screens, and all these are all contributing to the gratification of the senses. No matter how good your screen is, if your eye base is not good enough, you're not going to see the clarity. People want to see clearly, not only the objects, but they also want their eyes to be in good condition to be able to see clearly. Right? So there's this desire for good eyesight, for good hearing, for good sensitivity of the organs, in order to fully experience and enjoy sensual pleasure. That is the gratification. The drawback is that all of these are impermanent. They don't last forever. They arise and they change, and they are unsatisfactory because they don't give you everlasting happiness. Even though you may strive very hard for it, in the end, the pleasure is very sentient, very ephemeral, compared to the amount of time and effort and labor and suffering you have to go in order to get that little small time space duration of happy feelings. When one contemplates on that, you may run after sensual desires, sensual pleasures, but every time you experience the sensual pleasures, do so with mindfulness. And when you are continuous and persistent enough in your practice, it will naturally bring about the next step, which is the escape. Escape from this sensuality or attachment to this sensuality is basically the discipline of desire, the abandoning of desire. First of all, you try to discipline yourself, you try to refrain, you restrain yourself from giving in to your desires. And then eventually, as you do that again and again, then you abandon it. You abandon the desires completely. So this was what we were talking about yesterday. But it is actually a learning process. You cannot just abandon desire because you want to. You have to go through the suffering, understand that desire is the cause of a suffering. Only then will you be able to let go and abandon. Initially, you might need to exert some effort because you use intellectual wisdom to contemplate and reflect on the drawbacks. But as you do that again and again, you try to verify that in your personal practice, personal experience, then it becomes more experiential. So that finally the discipline of desire or the abandoning of desire comes not from the brain, not from intellectual reflection, but from deep insight. That is the one that is transforming. That has the power of transforming your life and your mindset, your attitude, your view towards the whole world. Of course, we cannot deny that intellectual understanding and intellectual contemplation and reflection plays also an important role. In fact, this is the cause and condition that lays the foundation for experiential insight to arise. You cannot just have experiential insight without doing your homework. And that is what the whole task of vipassana is all about. This morning during the interview, we also brought up the subject of samatha and vipassana. And I pointed out that according to one sutta, it's called Vijjabhagya Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Twos. And it talks that where the Buddha says that both samatha and vipassana have a share in wisdom, in gnosis, in true knowledge. What's the purpose of practicing samatha? Or what is the benefit of practicing samatha? What happens when you practice samatha? And the answer is, when you practice samatha, the mind is developed. What happens when the mind is developed? Then passion is abandoned. That is one. That is the object or aim of practicing samatha. What is passion? Passion in Pali is called raga. Sometimes it's translated as lust. Lust is not only sexual lust. It could be a deep desire, a very strong desire for anything sensual. I think psychologists and neuroscientists have come to this, have made this observation that a human being has two aspects. One is the emotive aspect and one is the intellectual aspect. One is the more artistic and intuitive aspect and the other one is the more intellectual aspect. The emotive aspect is to be tamed by samatha. When you practice samatha, there's not much wisdom. All you need to do is to still your mind. And there are various ways of doing so. One way is to just focus your attention on one single object and shut out everything else, including your thoughts. You do that, the mind becomes very calm and peaceful and concentrated and focused. So that is one sort of samatha where your passions have been temporarily abandoned. They have been put aside. Now when your mind is so deeply absorbed into a particular object of attention, then it is free from the hindrances temporarily. But that does not give you wisdom. It calms your mind, it calms your emotions, It frees you from the hindrances, but it does not give you wisdom. Then the Buddha asks, what is the benefit of practicing vipassana? The practice of vipassana brings about development of wisdom. And when wisdom is developed, what happens? What is the end result? Ignorance is abandoned. So therefore, the Buddha says there is, on the one hand, a liberation of the mind due to samatha, and on the other hand, there is a liberation of wisdom due to vipassana. The mind is liberated from passion, from the hindrances, and wisdom is liberated from ignorance. Ignorance is what clouds the mind from understanding the true nature of reality. So today I want to talk about ignorance. There are two suttas in the Samyutta Nikaya from Salayatana Samyutta. According to the Connected Discourses of the Buddha, translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi, it's 35.79 and 80, two suttas. Okay, let me read this to you and let's discuss this. Then a certain bhikkhu approached the Blessed One and said to him, Bhante, is there one thing through the abandoning of which ignorance is abandoned by a bhikkhu and true knowledge arises? Do you get it? You just develop one thing and ignorance can be abandoned. What is that one thing? Is there such a thing? And the Buddha says, there is one thing, bhikkhu, through the abandoning of which ignorance is abandoned by a bhikkhu and true knowledge arises. So you work so hard now. You just need to do one thing only. You want to know what it is? And what is that one thing, Venerable Sir? Ignorance, bhikkhu, is the one thing through the abandoning of which ignorance is abandoned. How enlightening, isn't it? But Bhante, how should a bhikkhu know? How should he see for ignorance to be abandoned by him and true knowledge to arise? Okay, that's the next question. Bhikkhu, when a bhikkhu knows and sees the I is impermanent, ignorance is abandoned by him and true knowledge arises. When he knows and sees forms as impermanent, etc., etc., when he knows and sees as impermanent whatever feeling arises with mind contact as condition, ignorance is abandoned by him and true knowledge arises. When, bhikkhu, a bhikkhu knows and sees thus, ignorance is abandoned by him and true knowledge arises. So very simple. Yeah, all you need to do is to look at things in terms of impermanence. That brings me to another sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Trees. It's called the Sankata Lakkhana Sutta. In this sutta, the Buddha talks about conditioned phenomena, sankhara. He used the participle, sankata, conditioned. And he said, the conditioned phenomena has three characteristics. I'm sure you would think that it's anicca, dukkha, anatta. But not mentioned in this particular sutta is otherwise explained. The Buddha says that what is conditioned has the nature of arising, and it has also the nature of passing away. The third characteristic is that after it has arisen, it will persist, and as it persists, it will change, and then it will go away. So it arises, it persists, changes, and disappears. So these are the three characteristics of conditioned phenomena. Now, how we interpret this It brings us the three characteristics everybody knows, the three universal characteristics. So when the Buddha says that if a bhikkhu is able to perceive the eye, forms, sense experience, and the feeling that arises due to sense experience as impermanent, then that's how ignorance can be abandoned. How can you see your eye to be impermanent? Can you see your eye arise and pass away? Not so easy, right? You can see your eyes arise, change and pass away, but you can't see it pass away because by then you'll be dead. So there's something more to it than just the physical eye. In the course of a meditation, the eye may not be so obvious, but the ear might be very obvious. When you get into relatively deep or stable samadhi, then you will be able to see how certain sounds impinge on your ear, and then there is the sense of hearing occurring. But when you are practicing open awareness, you are allowing things to happen. And then you may notice that certain sense experiences happen at the relevant sense doors. And you can notice that you can differentiate between the sound, the hearing, and the sense base. And sometimes the sense base is there, sometimes it's not there. Sometimes some other sense base is more apparent, and another sense experience is happening. Right? So these are all arising and passing away. Sometimes it's this sound, sometimes it's another sound, sometimes it's another sensation, sometimes it's a thought. Actually, things are arising and passing away at different sense bases. When one is able to see these things arise and pass away, that's not yet insight. Scientists also see that. Scientists can see that with their electron microscope even more clearly than you do. But that's not insight. That's just observation. Because if you sharpen your attention, you will see things arising and passing away. But if you don't inject it with a view, that this is impermanent, it arises because of cause and condition, and you don't realize that through personal experience, that's not yet insight. So the job of vipassana is for you to interpret this experience of seeing things arising and passing away as, it is impermanent due to cause and conditioning. And you have to look at the cause and conditioning. If you just see things arise and pass away without understanding the cause and conditioning, there could be wrong view. What sort of wrong view? You see things arise and pass away, and you don't see the cause and condition, and you don't see yourself being the agent for this arising and passing away of the phenomena, then you might think that there is an almighty creator that is playing tricks on me. He's the one that is doing all these things, and I don't know about it. I'm just a victim, a pawn. That's one wrong view. Another wrong view is that there's no cause and condition. Everything is just random. But if you can see the cause and condition, then you know that there's no one there who is doing it. There's no one there who is in control, who is doing it, but these things are happening naturally due to causes and conditions. So that's why it's not enough just to see things arise and pass away. You also have to see the cause and condition behind the arising and passing away. So when you begin to see the arising and passing away of your thoughts, of your ideas, your perceptions, and you can see the cause and conditioning, then you can also look at it in terms of dukkha. It's suffering because I got no control. I can't control it. It's suffering because It keeps on coming and going due to cause and conditions. There's no way that you can predict it. There's no way they can do anything about it. It's unsatisfactory. If it's something pleasant, you want it to last long, it won't last long if the conditions are not there. If it's unpleasant sensation and you want to push it away, it also won't go if the conditions are not there. You can look at it, can appear to the yogi as unsatisfactory. And precisely because they are all, has no control over them, and they're all due to causes and conditions, then one can also perceive it as not me, not mine, not myself. I didn't do it. It happened because of this and this and this and that. This one single characteristic of arising, persisting, changing and passing away can be interpreted as unsatisfactory, can also be interpreted as not self, not me, not mine. And it really depends on each individual and depends on circumstances. Sometimes you see one aspect clearer than the other. Sometimes you can see all the three of them. And some people are more prone to seeing maybe one characteristic rather than the other. So it doesn't matter. It's not important. The most important thing is for you to be able to see this and become disenchanted. The whole purpose of observing all these things arising and passing away due to cause and conditioning is to give you a chance to let go of these things. No point chasing after them. No point desiring them because they don't last. And therefore, by understanding this, that's how you can go to the third step of escaping from sensuality. That sort of discipline of desire, that sort of abandoning desire comes through experiential verification. Seeing it again and again and again, and then you get really tired of it. But it's also a natural human tendency to get bored. Someone was interviewed this morning saying that nowadays he's not so bothered so much about the taste of food, and he just wants to eat to fill his stomach. Maybe in the past he was very particular about food and he would go all the way to taste, to buy and eat a particular sort of food. But this did not necessarily be the result of meditation. If you have a child or you're familiar with children, you would know that take children to the mall, when they catch sight of a particular toy, they will start to cry and want it very desperately, right? And if you don't get it, they'll throw a tantrum and really want that toy. Okay, so you buy him that toy and he'll promise, I'll play with it forever. But he takes it home and he plays with it for 3 days and then he chucks it to one corner, no longer interested. All of us are the same. We also grow out of our likes, don't we? Our preferences. We used to like certain things, certain hobbies in our early life, but now we have changed. We got sick of it. We change on to something else. That is exactly the same principle of boredom. Boredom is the same thing. We want something new. Always not contented with what is, or having had enough of what is, and going on to something new. Imagine if you were a monk. Monks are very well pampered by devotees. The devotee observes carefully and he knows that this monk likes a particular food. What happens if that devotee serves that food every day? Would you like that? I think you will get sick of it within a week. That's also a natural human tendency. So the whole purpose of practicing vipassana is to do it continuously and to speed up this tendency of getting disenchanted. Nothing is worth desiring. Nothing is worth going after. Because going after all these things is actually a cause of suffering. You don't know that until you really watch, then you will know. Let me go on to the next sutta, which is somewhat similar but there is something else new about it. The next sutta is somewhat similar, and the bhikkhu asks, but Bhante, how should a bhikkhu know? How should he see for ignorance to be abandoned by him and true knowledge to arise? Here, a bhikkhu has heard, nothing is worth adhering to. When a bhikkhu has heard, nothing is worth adhering to, he directly knows everything. Having directly known everything, he fully understands everything. Having fully understood everything, he sees all signs differently. He sees the eye differently, he sees forms differently, etc. You're going through all the 6 senses and the 6 sense objects and the 6 feelings connected with the senses. Whatever feeling arises with mind contact as condition, that too he sees differently. When a bhikkhu knows and sees thus, ignorance is abandoned by him and true knowledge arises. This needs some explanation. What is meant by when a bhikkhu has heard nothing is worth adhering to, he directly knows everything. What does it mean by he directly knows everything? What is this everything? This everything is the 6 senses, and anything connected with the 6 senses. See, hear, smell, taste, the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind, the seeing, the hearing, the smelling, the tasting, the feeling with the sensing with the body, the thinking and feeling with the mind, and feelings that arise because of the experiences of the 6 senses. Understanding them completely, seeing them, understanding their true nature. That is what is meant. And when he sees that, having fully understood everything, he sees all signs differently. What are these signs? Sabba nimitta. And the word differently is a translation of the Pali anyato. Anya is other, and another way. When we see something, the eye only sees color. Eye consciousness only sees color. But eye consciousness is also accompanied by sanya, perception, a very rudimentary perception. And that rudimentary perception is followed by the mind consciousness and its sanya, which is more complex. Maybe the rudimentary perception of eye consciousness is that it recognizes that there is color. Maybe a very rudimentary, just basic colors. But it cannot recognize the shape and what is called, what is named. But based on past experience, the mind is the one that's able to label it. There's a man, there's a woman, that's nice proportion, that's beautiful, okay, that's desirable, that's undesirable. That's the work of the mind. The commentary explains that normal people, whatever the 6 senses come into contact with, they will have their own labeling in a very conventional sense. There's a man, there's a woman, there's somebody I know, and so forth. But this bhikkhu, who is abandoning ignorance, does not see those things in that way. He sees it differently. He sees them as not me, not mine, not myself. Whatever signs that arise, he understands that this is a product of past conditioning and experience, and it has arisen because of various causes and conditions. In order to do that continuously, it's not so easy. Although we try to practice mindfulness, looking back at what's happening to our minds, to our senses, we still have this sense of I. We're always identifying with it. My thought, my anger, my feeling, my perception. How often are you able to lose that sense of self and just see or perceive things as phenomena without identification? A pain is just a pain. It's not my leg that is paining. Are you able to see that? No, right? It's not that easy. So we need to put in some jump start. Right? If your battery cannot start, you borrow somebody's car battery and then you put a cable over and jump start your battery. So we have to do a bit of jump start by using the intellect. Try to inject that into your mind. Try to change your perception. That brings us to the subject of mindfulness. Most people think that mindfulness is just present moment awareness. But present moment awareness is not a very accurate way of saying it, but a useful way in a conventional sense. Because the word mindfulness comes from the Pali word sati, which means remembrance, memory. And remembrance is always about something of the past, not about the future or the present. And I find that through my research and practice and teaching, there are 4 aspects of mindfulness, which I call the 4 R's, which are very helpful for practice. The first R is to remember. Remember instructions when you read a book. When the teacher is giving you instructions, try to remember what you hear so that you can put it into practice. And then the second R is to recollect. Once you get up from the Dhamma hall, once you close the book and you are seated somewhere else, you must also recollect what you have learned. Or else, if you cannot recollect instructions, how are you going to practice? You cannot practice. And the third R is to remind yourself to put what you have learned and recollected into practice. And so this is where it comes. This is where this jump start comes into play. You have to remind yourself that everything is not me, not mine, not myself. And you try to verify that by always trying to look at the cause and condition. Now I use the word cause and condition in this way. A cause is an immediate cause. Usually easier to see a sensory cause, a sensory catalyst. Something moves, your eye catches attention, the mind starts to label it, and then the mind recognizes what it is, that triggers off a memory, and that memory triggers off another thought. You can see this whole chain of things. So the first cause is the sensory cause, the eye coming into contact with a visual object. And it triggers off a memory. Not a memory, it triggers off a label and a commentary. You're commenting on what the eye just saw. Now, the way you comment on it is based on past conditioning, your past experience, how you experience that thing before in the past, and then you extrapolate and impose on your present experience, assuming that it is the same. But actually it's not the same. Everything is new. But many times our past experience can be used to extrapolate on the present and is still usable. Sometimes it's not. So because most of the time it works, so we think that it will work all the time. But it's not so. So we have to be very careful, and we have to look very carefully into the mind. Every time this happens, there is sensory contact, there is a label in the mind, there is a comment in the mind, then we should be very careful. Be aware of that. That is not me, not mine, not myself. That is a product of past conditioning. That may be correct, may be wrong, not sure. But of course, we live in a world where we have to make decisions. And our decisions are informed by our past experience and perceptions. But when we do make decisions, we must be fully aware that these are all based on past perceptions and experiences, which may or may not be accurately applied in the present circumstances. So there's always a factor of safety. It might not work out that way, and if it doesn't work out that way, it's okay, but I still got to make a decision anyway. So when you psycho yourself in that way, then you won't be disappointed when things don't turn out the way you want them to. In a retreat situation, you can do that more often. You can remind yourself more often to look at things that way. Things are all due to cause and condition. They are not me, not mine, not myself. To prove that it's not you, not yours, not yourself, then you try to nip it at the bud, see the cause and see the conditioning. Cause means the current sensory contact, and the conditioning is your past experience and past perceptions that influences your commentary at the moment. Let me go on to the next R. The fourth R is retrospect. Retrospect means to look back. Literally, retro means back, spect means to look. To look back means to look back at what has happened in your mind immediately, or what has happened at the senses immediately. The moment you hear something, then the mind is aware of the hearing that has occurred. The moment a thought arises, the mind is aware of the thought that has arisen. The moment anger arises, the mind knows the anger that has arisen. That is the immediate past. But using conventional language, we say present. Right? We stay in the present, in the here and now, because that's the closest we can get to the present. It's not the real present, but it's the immediate past. But it's good enough, it's useful. When we say be in the present moment, stay with the senses, we are not being very accurate. Actually, it's more accurate to say immediate past, to give justice to the actual Pali word sati. Another clarification is the word awareness. Sometimes mindfulness is also equated with awareness, which is not really true. The word awareness in English is so broad, it can mean so many things. It could also be equivalent to consciousness. You're conscious of something, you're aware of something. What's the difference? Being mindful is different. Being mindful is you have awareness of a past object. If you have bare awareness, it could be of a present object, it could be anything, not necessarily a past object. So mindfulness is awareness of a past object. And mindfulness is not just confined to wholesome thoughts or wholesome mental states. Mindfulness is something very essential for all living beings. That's why in Unaba Brahmana Sutta, in the Samyutta Nikaya, one Brahmin came to ask the Buddha, you know, these five senses, each has its own field. Each can only know its own object. Who is it that is able to know all their objects? Because he was a Brahmin, and the Brahmins believed that besides the five senses, there is an Atta. You know, there is an Atman, a soul that is in charge of everything. But the Buddha did not say, of course, the Anatta Vadi. So he did not say that it's anyone. He says it's Mano, it's mind. Mind is the one that is able to know the objects of the five senses. Although each sense can know only its specific object, the mind can know all of their senses. And therefore, the mind is the refuge of the five senses. Why? Because the five senses can only mind their own business. The eye can only see, and it doesn't care what the ear hears or what the nose smells or what the body feels. And so the same for the other senses. Each of them are just doing their own thing. But the mind is the one that is the coordinator, that is able to coordinate all the five senses for the well-being and survival of the organism. So the Brahmin next asked the question, who is the refuge for Mano, for the mind? And the Buddha said, it is Sati, mindfulness. Mindfulness is a refuge for the mind. Because even though the mind is the coordinator of the five senses, it still needs Sati to remind it, to bring past experience, to help it to coordinate the five senses. Without past experience, without memory, how are you going to perform anything? A lot of our survival skills are based on past experience and memory. Sati is universal. It is found not only in human beings, in all beings, but sometimes we are unmindful, we forget. And when we forget, we get into trouble. So that's why mindfulness is so important. Mindfulness is essential for the survival of the organism. And it is also essential for walking the Noble Eightfold Path and achieving the goal of cessation of suffering. In the course of our interview today also, there was someone who was watching pain, and I think I did mention once, not too often, but that when pain arises, try not to focus on the pain. Instead, look at how the mind is reacting to the pain. Very often, we tend to forget to look at the mind's reaction. We are too busy trying to get rid of the pain, trying to feel comfortable, that we forget to look at how the mind is reacting. The normal reaction of the mind to pain is to fight against it, to bear with it, and that usually creates tension in the body. Tension will aggravate the pain. If you are too busy trying to look at the pain, trying to get rid of it, that will create more tension and make it worse. And that applies not only to physical pain. It relates to anything that you don't like. If you're a thinker and you have a lot of thoughts, and you're now is already in the second or third day of your retreat, and you're thinking, wow, I'm coming here for only a 3 or 4 day retreat, and now my thoughts are still plaguing me, still don't want to keep quiet, and then you get desperate. And without knowing it, you begin to tense up. And you get all mangzhang, the whole body becomes very, very uncomfortable. The mind also is not in a good mood. And you've forgotten all about the mind. You've forgotten about the attitude of the mind towards the thoughts. You're too busy trying to get rid of them. So that's why it's very important to look back at the mind. How is the mind relating to what's happening in the senses? Don't forget that. The moment you can catch the aversion in the mind, it may be very subtle, but the aversion is there, then you will be able to do better. Then you can let go. This is a time when you need to remember things happen because of cause and condition. Thoughts are okay. They are natural activity of the mind. My job is not to fight against them. My job is to understand them. Don't fight against them, neither do you follow them. Just allow them to come and go. Gently bring your attention back to the senses. If it gets too overwhelming when you're sitting, get up and do something. Stand, walk, pick leaves, sweep the garden. Many things to do. But try to be mindful while you're doing that. You're not trying to get rid of the thoughts. You're just trying to step back and understand them. But because they're too overwhelming in your sitting, you have to do something else. Something more physical, so that your mind is busy with the 5 senses and you wouldn't have time to get caught up in the thoughts. So it's so important, don't forget, always to look back at your mind, look at how the mind is relating to the senses rather than looking at the objects. This practice is subject-oriented, not object-oriented. And you all come from a society that is target-oriented. That is the problem. So when you watch pain, remember to watch your mind. Don't just focus on the pain. Why do you want to focus on the pain? By focusing on the pain, primary motivation is you're trying to pulverize it. You're trying to make it disappear. Because you know that the power of concentration can sometimes make the pain disappear. But that's not the idea. The idea is to understand pain. And if pain is so obvious, is so intense, you don't even need to focus on it. You can be focusing on other things, something more neutral or something pleasant. Although your leg may be painful, or your neck or your body might be nice and cool under the fan or with a nice wind blowing. So be aware of pleasant sensations. But that is in the background. Look at your mind, relax your mind, tell yourself this pain is not me, not mine, not myself, it's due to cause and conditioning. If you really cannot bear, you can always move. There's no rule saying that you cannot move, right? You can move. It's just a matter of to what degree the mind can stand, right? If the mind cannot stand, let go. You are not losing anything. Yeah, you are gaining the wisdom of understanding how far the mind can go and how far the body can go. Let me stop here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes? The question is, according to the Abhidhamma, the mind is in the heart base. In order to look at the mind, should we focus on the heart base? Yeah, the word Hadaya word 2 is used by the Abhidhamma, but even in the Abhidhamma itself, it doesn't specify where it is. So it doesn't really matter. Like I say, all you need to do is try to place your attention at a place where you think the mind is, or you perceive the mind to be. If you think it's at the heart, okay, place it at the heart. If you think it's in the brain, you can place it at the brain. If you think it's somewhere else, you can place it somewhere else. But stay there and watch the mind to see what comes into it, rather than go out to look for objects through the senses. But it's only when you're ready. If you're not ready, don't try, because you'll get a headache or a heartache. Or you try some and then you can let go. When you cannot get it, then go back to your senses. If you can, then you come back, stay in the center. It is more comfortable, not so busybody. And also, if you're having a lot of thoughts, if you really keep watching the mind, there's no chance for the thoughts to arise. Yeah, you just keep ask the mind, what's the mind aware of? What's the mind aware of? The moment you know it's thinking, then you have to let it go and come back to whatever sense objects that it be aware of, wherever you think it is. Anyone else? No more? Okay. To stretch and then do your evening chanting.